This is not fake news. This is not, I guarantee this is not fake news, folks. With 7 games already played and only 5 left, Nebraska controls its own destiny if Wisconsin loses a game. So they were going to control their own destiny if Iowa did not lose this past weekend. But there's still a lot of hope. Wisconsin has some difficult games, including Ohio State. But regardless of the up and down season and all that, Nebraska is right in the thick of things for the Big Ten Western Division Championship. All right, Huskers Live right here at the Voice of College Football each and every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Greg Peterson here, of course, from Husker Online. Greg making it work for us as he does each and every week. We appreciate that. And we've got Justin Adams here hosting the post-game show here at the Voice of College Football. And also on, if I don't check the banner, I'm going to screw it up.
Cheesy Corn Sports.
Cheesy Corn Sports. Thank you very much. I should have been prepared. I should know better. Cheesy Corn Sports, folks. It's right here on YouTube.
It's a unique name, so
it's a good name.
It'd be easy to remember.
It should be.
Yeah.
No. Well, it probably is for most, but not
you got to keep up with like 87 different shows. So
thank you. I'll take the pass. I will take the pass. Well, Greg, you saw it from the sideline. How pretty was this win against Northwestern on Saturday?
It's costly win. Too many injuries. They lose 2 offensive linemen, Turner Corcoran and Ethan Piper, for the season. Both underwent surgery already. And Billy Kemp gets hurt, so another wide receiver down. But, the defense definitely put lipstick on a pig there to save the day. They played their butts off, and offense, a little bit of growing pains still happening there, but Heinrich Harburg stepped up and connected with Malachi Coleman there, and the place just went crazy. That's the loudest I've heard it inside the stadium this season. So the crowd was into it, and all in all, you take the win definitely, and like you said, now they're in control of their own destiny. And I still kind of think it's comical people talking about Nebraska having a chance to win the West and go to Indy and get beat by about 70 points by whoever comes out of the East. But hey, that's the reality we're living in right now. And just unfortunate with the injuries, kind of putting a damper on things, because the team was riding pretty high after that victory.
The Malachi Coleman shot, he was basically even, just barely had an edge on the defender when Harburg launched that thing, and then Coleman just streaked and just blew right by him and went and tracked down the football.
Yeah,
I've seen beautiful.
I've seen him do that several times, in high school. That's the talent that he has, the burst. I mean, he was a track guy. So, yeah, he's got that burst and those long arms. And, when he concentrates catching the ball, he's pretty darn tough to stop. So, yeah. But way too many mistakes, though. I mean, Heinrich Harburg putting the ball on the ground too many times. And, just got to keep trying to clean those things up. But those are growing pains for first time starter who is now starting to look pretty good. There hasn't been a starting Nebraska quarterback go 4-1, and I think since way early 2000s. So that was good to see.
Interesting. Matt Rule said about that long touchdown play to Malachi Coleman that Tom Osborne had actually told him to kind of do that play before the game started. So on the sideline, he kind of pointed up there to Tom Osborne. So that was a Tom Osborne wrinkle that he had picked his brain for. So interesting little nugget there, how that worked out. And it was smart. It just they brought everybody down, and we've been in shotgun so much it doesn't work. They brought everybody down, and he was able to just create lane over the top. Like Greg said, he's just got that track star speed. So as long as they can, the deep throws have been inconsistent, but he put that ball right on the money. So that's really good for Malachi to get out there and get a big play, get his first touchdown and stuff like that. So excited to see what he does going forward.
I mean, Malachi Coleman and Heinrich Harburg have played a lot of football together.
Yeah.
They were on the same 7-on-7 team going through high school. And,
Yeah, that helps a lot. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
they already had a chemistry before Malachi even got there.
Yeah, and that's super important. Yeah, people underestimate how important that already having that connection is.
And to get that first touchdown, not just as a garbage touchdown, meaningless touchdown, mop up, but to put one on the board with a slim lead, close game, and for it to mean a lot, that has to be meaningful.
Yeah, that was, huge for momentum. And just getting a big play, it just seemed like we needed to make a big over-the-top play, because last year that was so much of Nebraska's offense was, Trey Palmer blowing the top off the defense, and we haven't seen that this year. So it was nice to just know that, like, hey, we got it. There's one, so we know we're capable of it. It's just been such tough sledding with this offense. It's like we got to be able to open this offense up somehow, and hopefully, if they add a little bit more, or can land a few more deep balls and kind of stretch the field a little bit more, maybe that'll open some of the other stuff up offensively. So we'll see.
Heinrich Harburg got his customary more carries than everybody else by the time it shook out. So they are still placing a lot on him in the run game, of course. Emmett Johnson had 12 carries and Anthony Grant only 6. What do we make?
Emmett Johnson got the start over Anthony Grant, actually.
Great game. Yeah.
So, that's about the way the carries were just, distributed. So, it's just whoever starts is whoever had the best week in practice and didn't drop the ball. It took care of the ball more. So, you're going to keep seeing that platoon of those two and Josh Fleeks as the season goes along, because right now, you're decimated with injuries on that offense. Like Matt Rule said, Saturday, 10 of the 12 starters will be all underclassmen against Purdue. So, yeah, you've lost a lot of your senior leadership now due to injury. So it's pretty rough, but, they're still happy with what they got. They still think they have guys, good enough players to win games, and, next man up mentality. And this is what all the hard work they've done and all the reps that everybody's taken, gets people ready to go. And, they can come right in and play right away. So that's been very helpful. You saw that on the defensive side when, James Williams was inserted in and ended up with a sack and a half or whatever it was. And, a guy that everybody was like, who? Nobody had ever heard of this guy. He was, on the scout squad, on the scout team. So, that's just a testament to these coaches, all the way around, every room there. Everybody's had plenty of reps, and nobody gets in there and doesn't know what to do. So, you're replacing 3 new starters on the offensive line. But when you think about it, 2 of them have been starters before, in Teddy Prohaska and Henry Lutowski. And then, you got Evans Williams, who's already been playing games already this season. So, you're not throwing in 3 new offensive linemen that don't have experience. So that definitely helps. But they can't afford any more injuries anywhere, really. It's just sad that when you see people getting banged up and then you find out they're done for the year. It's just happened way too many times this season.
Yeah, and one thing that I do try to tell Husker fans to kind of stay somewhat positive is, if we looked at this depth chart with all the injuries at this point of the season, coming into the year, and you asked us what our record would be, I would not probably have said 4-3 with a chance to potentially, like we said, we control our own destiny. The likelihood isn't high, but with a chance to control our own destiny and be able to make it to the West. I think a lot of us would have really been perfectly okay with that. I know it's a lot of emotion right now just because the offense is struggling so much, but to our point earlier about the camaraderie and just having those connections, it's like each time that we start to kind of have some consistency on the field with the players, it's just like one more injury comes, and it's just so I've in a way I'm kind of impressed with how Satterfield's handled it. It's just like the turnovers and stuff like that, of course, but yeah, just like if you told us coming in the year that these would be the injuries that we had, I think we would have a way different judgment of where we're at now.
And all the coaches, have been asked if they've ever seen anything like this, and none of them have ever seen a team get decimated like that, during the season. So
yeah, there's a lot of people asking too about, is it an issue with coaching? But the thing is, it's like some of these are ligaments, some of these are, it's not one consistent thing. They're not just muscular, they're not just soft tissue. There's ligaments and all kinds of stuff. So I don't necessarily think it's anything to do with strength and conditioning or anything like that.
Those are all contact injuries.
Yeah, it's just a lot of bad luck right now.
I mean, Ethan Piper got hit on the side of his knee, and
yeah,
Teddy and Turner Corcoran got his foot stepped on, and Billy Kemp got his knee folded over, and it's it doesn't have anything to do with their strength and conditioning.
Not at all. So
they're in top-notch shape.
Yeah, just to get ahead of that question.
Yeah.
And with Harburg, at least those 2 interceptions came very, very early in the game. Not that that's good to get off to that kind of start, but obviously the defense picked him up, only gave up, I believe, a field goal, stopped them on the other right in their tracks. So, threw a couple bad balls, one got deflected, they get picked off, but then he was, and I don't want to make too much of it because it's not like he was asked to throw the ball 50 times, but he did not throw it in harm's way the rest of the game. So they made it through 2 early turnovers in the first 5 or 6 minutes. And Greg, thanks for making me feel better, because if I don't get to see the game, I'll watch the extended highlights, which basically show you every meaningful. I'll watch the 15 to 18 minute highlight package, and then I'll go back and look at the box score. And I saw James Williams with a sack, and I thought, who's James Williams?
That's exactly what we all said. They brought him up for a post-game interview in the side room, and I had to ask the intern that was running that camera. I'm like, who the hell is that? And he didn't even know. And I'm like looking, and thank God he had his jersey on. I'm like, who the hell is number 90?
That's when you're in a little bit of a tough situation there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I mean, that was a package they put in for him specifically. That didn't have anything to do with injuries or anything.
Oh, okay.
That's just a guy that's been playing his butt off in practice, and
that's cool though. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that Coach Rule had noticed, because Coach Rule has been coaching the scout defense team, and he saw something that he liked. And this guy, I mean, he made the team in a summer workout, like a postgraduate camp tryouts, and they liked what they saw of him, and he made the team. And like I said, he's been on the scout team ever since. But Coach Rule saw something that he liked, and so he brought it to Coach White and Coach Knighton's attention, and they agreed. And so they put that specific package in there for him. And Ty Robinson actually said today that they've been calling him Sack Man ever since spring.
That's all.
Spring training camp. So, and Ty's like, the guy's the same height as I am, but he weighs like 240 pounds, and he's got size 17 shoes.
Jeez.
They call him Sack Man, and he came right in there and he did what he was supposed to.
That's cool.
So, yeah,
what a cool story too. Another fun nugget from the game too. Just before I forget, every point was scored by somebody from Nebraska, so that was an interesting little nugget I saw too. Alvano kicked the field goal, of course, and then the touchdowns. But yeah, big kick. too. I think that was 47, and he hit him right in the all. Yeah, hit him right in the all-state hands, which I think should be an extra point. But tack on 4. But I think that's big for his confidence because again, he's coming off that bad hold. He had 2 out of 3, but that bad hold, and so it was nice to see a long one go through for him right down the middle at home. In that situation where we needed to tie the game. So yeah, that'll be good for his confidence going forward, I believe.
I don't think there's been any lack of confidence in him anyway. I mean,
yeah,
he's got ice water in his veins. It's just some days you don't have it.
Yeah, exactly.
And, it's like Coach Rule had even said to him, he's like, were you worried about it when you were kicking the game winner in the state championship game for Westside last year? No, when you hit a 50-yarder, to win the state title. So
yeah, because he drilled that thing too.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that would have been good from 60.
Yeah.
We talk Huskers football with all of you each and every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Central time. The schedule is just too long for me to try to remember which. I've got an appointment at 8 o'clock. I recorded 8 o'clock. We've got a live stream at 8:30. We just did a 5:30. We had a noon today at 12:30, a 1:30, at 2:30, at 3:15. Okay.
You must have a war room, like just like a big whiteboard where you just have all your appointments set up.
Yeah. It's pretty much that.
Man.
So we are in the 6 to 7 hour. There we go. Central time. There we go. Okay. That's Justin. That's Greg.
Yes.
I'm Mark. We talk.
Hi, guys.
Welcome back.
Yeah. I know these guys. All right.
Just read the shirt in the background.
Yes. There we go. All right. Yeah. 17-9. Not too pretty, but it's effective. And I would say that, and this is me picking it up from watching the highlights package, not, in the extended version. So I'm watching almost, probably half the plays or more. That it seemed like they had control of the game, were the better team. Once Harburg scored the touchdown and they went on the drive right before halftime and he took it in, it looked like, okay, they're going to ram it down their throats and play defense and know this is the way the game's going to be won, and we're stronger and we're more solid up front and we're going to let these guys take it home.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're up 10-3 there. And I thought it was interesting that Ty Robinson said that, the defense, they're already, we're winning. We're ahead 10-3. So all we got to do is keep doing our jobs and, keep them from scoring. So they were fine. The defense was totally fine being only up 10-3. And they were really pissed off that they gave up that field goal in the fourth quarter. So they didn't get a shutout in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, that defense is so confident and playing at such a high level that, Nebraska is going to be in games that, they were upset that Northwestern got, 138 yards rushing on them. But, Nebraska's running for 200 a game. And, if you're going to run the ball and stop the run, you got a darn good chance of winning a lot of games. And that's what they've been doing. They're relying on that formula. That's why you haven't seen a lot of those, shots downfield either, because, it's about controlling the ball and eating up that clock and out physical on the other team, which you've completely seen. So.
Yeah. And another thing that is been, stood out for them is they're trusting each other. And that's, that comes down to the confidence you mentioned, because they're trusting each other, which makes their jobs easier, because they're not getting out of position to go, cover down here. They're playing physical, like he said, and they're getting a lot of hats of the football, and they're just playing as a unit. And right now, that's simply what he said. Just everybody's doing their job and they're playing as a unit. They trust each other. And I mean, that shows game in and game out. It's like they're never rattled, no matter what happens. It's like they'll come back out, reset mentally. They're really good about that. So excited about the defensive play. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of that second half, I was parked right next to the Nebraska sideline. And every time that defense would come up with a sack, I mean, you get 8 sacks. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But every time that they'd come up with a stop or a sack. I mean, that sideline was electric.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those guys really play for each other, like Justin mentioned. But,
Yep.
It's just unbelievable to see. It's great to see. I mean, kind of been missing that for a while.
Yeah, that energy hasn't been there in the last few years at all.
All right, I'm going to go to this place because, hey, Nebraska hasn't gone to a bowl game since 2016. They've not really contended in the division until a couple of years before, right in that range. They were contending in the division, haven't won the division championship since first year in the Big Ten, second year in the Big Ten. Second year in the Big Ten. Yes, 2012.
Yep.
And
Wisconsin.
We're in contention those first 5 years or so. Wisconsin's got one loss. Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska all have 2 losses. They have the tiebreaker. Okay, Northwestern's out of the way. They play Wisconsin. They play Iowa. They would lose the tiebreaker to Minnesota. They don't quite have control their own destiny. Actually, Minnesota, I believe, controls Wisconsin controls the division because they've only lost one game, but they're playing Ohio State Saturday, so it's unlikely that they'll win. They could win, but it's unlikely.
Fans,
they haven't inspired a lot of confidence either. I mean, they got pretty fortunate to win.
Yeah,
weekend. So I mean, I do think they're the strongest team left on our schedule, though. And
it's in Madison. That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
There's something
do you guys allow yourselves to dream at all here?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I looked at the rest of the schedule and I see every game as a winnable game. So I'm happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Because, you know, Wisconsin, especially this week and actually just more recently, they've just shown a lot of kinks in their armor that we didn't necessarily think they would have at the beginning of the season, the way they were playing. Nebraska in that game would just need to really, because it seems like Wisconsin running backs go for like 250 on us every time we play them. And Braylon Allen ran all over us when he was 17, and we had to hear all game about how he was 17. Yeah. So that's a good thing that our run defense has been more stout. But I definitely do think, you know, Iowa's offense is worse than ours, and so Maryland's. I don't think anybody on our schedule the rest of the way is averaging over 30 points a game. I think Maryland, and then after that, it's extremely low on the averages. And Maryland hasn't looked great the last couple of weeks either. So it just seems like the schedule each week, even though we're not necessarily happy with, some of the things that are taking place on the field with the injuries and the turnovers and stuff. It's just each week that, we come off of these, it seems like it adjusts. The rest of the remaining schedule gets a little bit easier. It seems like almost every week. So hopefully we'll it's Purdue. We got to take care of business, of course, but then it's going to be that rough stretch towards the end. It's going to be a tough stretch just based on that they're stacked at the back end.
Well, it's also going to be a tough stretch. You guys may want to cover your ears. I'm just going to be honest here. They're still not a very good football team. So, this is still an enormous challenge. If being 2-2 and having 5 games left, they probably don't have to win all of them. They probably have to win 4 out of 5. And if they're going to lose, they should lose to Maryland or Michigan State. That's probably the formula right there.
Maryland scares me.
Yeah, Maryland's my biggest fear the rest of the way.
Really?
Yeah.
More so than Wisconsin and Iowa.
Just because I think the dynamicism of their offense, and I don't know if we can keep up.
Yeah, Nebraska cannot get in the scoring duel.
If we do, we need to start forcing more turnovers on defense. Like, I love the way our defense has been playing, but we do need to start forcing some more turnovers too to help our offense out. But I think in that game especially, that's going to be one of those.
I mean, Nebraska specializes in those 17-9 games. So
yeah, yep.
Well, it's fascinating.
Everybody else left on the schedule, you can play them in the 17-9 game.
Yeah,
except for Maryland, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. if you told me that the Maryland game was going to be 17-9, I would be a bit surprised. Not that Nebraska is going to be able to bring them down as well, bring them down in terms of their scoring, I would think. So I'd be surprised if you said it's going to be 14-10, but I would also be surprised if you said Maryland, Nebraska is going to be 40-37. I think the two styles of play will create some kind of balance, maybe in the low 20s or something in that range. But the rest of these games should be rock fights.
Yeah, and I always laugh, like every Saturday, media people give their score predictions of the game, and so many people are always saying, 34-21, or 35-17. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
When is Nebraska scoring that many points?
They're trying to speak it into existence. I respect it. Been there, but now a few weeks into this, and I've just kind of accepted it. It is what it is. Coming off of the bye week, this is what we got the rest of the way. That was kind of the indicator.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they come out against Purdue, because Purdue's coming off of their bye week as well. So
yeah,
and they're definitely going to bring something different. They've been watching Nebraska, and Ryan Walters, very defensive-minded coach, who was the defense coordinator for Brett Bielema at Illinois last year, and they're going to have some stuff ready to go for Nebraska.
Yep.
So, it's not a game that that looks a 4-3 team hosting a 2-4 team. Not really going to be like that, I don't think. I think it's going to be a tight game.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Tanner Lee of Boiler Breakdown Podcast is joining us right now to break down the Boilers, because I understand from the podcast name that's what they do there. So we're going to get some Purdue insight from Tanner Lee. Tanner, we appreciate you being here.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is Justin right next to me. It's Greg right next to you.
Nice to meet you.
Why am I always on the bottom?
I think it's an order. I think it's an order when we enter the.
I click the button and it throws it wherever it wants to. Justin knows more about the StreamYard even than I do. He could probably tell me how I could reshuffle it.
It's just an order, but you can just drag and move. You can just click my.
Where do you want to be, Greg?
I want to be.
Yeah, I got you, Greg.
Hey, look at that! Drag and drop. I've learned something. It's not like not every other computer application works like that I shouldn't have figured that out anyway. But
you do like 170 episodes a day. And still
all right. Tanner, tell us about this Purdue team. The last time they were out, they had a bit of a rough ride against Ohio State, but otherwise they've been in all these games. And, I got to credit them for going out there and scheduling, in some respects, tougher than anyone in the conference. No heavyweights, but every game, no FCS, no low group of 5 teams, one of the best group of 5s in Fresno State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse. I still think they got ripped off at Syracuse last year, but they had to replay them this year and lose a fourth quarter game. So Hudson Card, new quarterback, new coach in Ryan Walters, of course, a complete transition from moving from a Jeff Brom, let's throw it all over the field, and losing all that offensive personnel that was so exceptional last year, Payne Durham, Charlie Jones, and Aiden O'Connell, to what you have now. Just your thoughts about how this is meshing at this point.
Yeah, well, from a record standpoint, I think it's about what every Purdue fan expected. I think I had them at 3-4 through 7 games instead of 2-5. So I think record-wise, pretty close. And outside of the Ohio State game, like you said, every other game they've basically been in for the most part. Wisconsin, well, Purdue hasn't beaten Wisconsin since 2003. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I think what surprises me is a lack of big playability from the offense. They brought in Graham Harrell, which is the first $1 million offensive coordinator Purdue's ever had. He came from West Virginia. Of course, he has the air raid background with playing for Mike Leach and all that. and getting Hudson Card and the transfer portal from Texas. He has a pretty accurate arm, a big arm. And like you mentioned, lost Payne Durham, lost Charlie Jones, Aiden O'Connell, 3 guys who got drafted in the NFL. So you knew you were losing a lot. But, after game 1, Deion Burks looked like he was going to be their big play guy. And while he leads the team with 5 receiving touchdowns and everybody else has either 1 or 0, Purdue hasn't really been able to have those explosive plays. Game in and game out, I think usually about their longest plays, 25 to 30 yards in the air. Of course, Devin Mockabee and Tyron Tracy are leading the ground attack, except Tracy got hurt against Iowa in the first half, had to miss the rest of that game, then sat out against Ohio State. I believe he will be back this weekend against Nebraska, but Mockabee's kind of picked up the slack when Tracy's been out. He had over 100 yards against Ohio State. That was the only positive Purdue had that game, becoming the first 100-yard rusher against Ohio State since last season. But the lack of offensive production has been a little concerning. Offensive line, I knew was going to be a struggle, and then factor in some injuries that they've had along the way. The depth's just not really there. That's my biggest concern against Nebraska. Nebraska's defensive line is really, really good. And then on the flip side, on the defense side of the ball, it's been kind of up and down. I know a lot of Purdue fans are frustrated thinking that Ryan Walters could adjust his system more to fit the personnel of the defense, but I'm kind of in the in the different camp to where let the coach and the defensive staff, who was so good at Illinois last year, run what they want to run, and in the long term, they'll get the guys to fit that system. So while you might go through some growing pains and some speed bumps this year, I think in the long run it'll be better for the program. But I've been happy with the pass rush from Purdue. Nick Gordon and Kydron Jenkins have been 2 bright spots, and then Dylan Thieneman, freshman safety, has been a real bright spot for Purdue. He's their leading tackler. I believe he leads in interceptions. If not leader, he's second on the team with 3, and he's probably making a good case for a freshman All-American for himself right now. So yeah, it's been kind of up and down season, but yet it's been still kind of enjoyable, even though it's 2-5, but this weekend's game's kind of their Super Bowl right now.
Yep. I guess I'll go ahead and ask a question. So you mentioned the defense. So just me looking over the numbers, right? I know the numbers don't tell the story, so that's going to be a question. But they're 82nd in pass yards allowed, 153.6 rush yards per game, which is 94th in total yards per game, and then almost 30 points per game allowed. But what would you say is like your overall assessment, like numbers aside, that is kind of like a strength of this defense that we won't see through that? Because of course we look at the numbers and that's one thing, but what is your take on the defense and the identity of the defense and what we should look out for?
I think this defense, compared to the Jeff Brom defenses he had 6 years at Purdue, I think this defense is more disciplined than Jeff Brom teams had. Jeff Brom teams, they seem to get a lot of personal foul penalties on the defense side of the ball. We haven't seen that too much from this Ryan Walters defense. They seem to be more disciplined and fundamental at times, even though they have had struggles at tackling a couple different games. But they don't seem to give up too many huge plays in the air, and I think that's the system of having Thieneman so far back. I'm sure you guys have seen that he plays literally 20 yards off the ball back there usually, and that's by design so they don't get burnt because they're pretty thin back there in the defensive backfield. I mean, Marquise Wilson, one of their corners they got from Penn State from transfer portal, he's out for the season. So now Derek Rogers, a true freshman, kind of got thrown in the fire, and Marvin Harrison Jr. was his first challenge, and that went about as expected 2 weeks ago. But I think it's more just staying disciplined. Not, even though they've gave up a decent amount of points this year and yardage per game, they haven't really got burnt too many times on big pass plays, and just staying disciplined and not getting too many costly boneheaded penalties.
For sure.
Tell me about the pass rush. I mean, you guys ranked like 19th nationally, 3rd in the Big Ten in sacks.
Yeah, Kydron Jenkins and Nick Gordon, who was formerly known as Nick Caraway, he changed his name in the offseason. Those 2 guys have been the spearheaded that. Kydron Jenkins, and I figured he was primed for a big year this year, but I think he's even exceeded a lot of Purdue fans' expectations so far. Those two guys are pretty relentless pass rushers off the edge. They don't get a ton of sacks from the linebacker position. Yanni Karloftis, the younger brother of George Karloftis, is starting to come into his own a little bit finally. During his junior year, hadn't played a whole lot due to injuries and just kind of being lost in the shuffle the last few years. He had a real good game against Illinois a couple weeks back. But really, it starts and ends with Scorton and Jenkins for the pass rush. Those guys have helped push those numbers up.
Yeah, he's got 5 sacks for Kendrick Jenkins, which is, and 7 TFLs, pretty respectable. And then
And at one point, I don't know where he is. I think he was leading the nation in hurries. I don't know where he stands anymore, but
yeah. This seems to be just looking at the breakdown. This seems to be a battle of teams who can't score in the red zone. Nebraska 72%, Purdue 69th,
Yes.
and then also Nebraska allows 88% scoring in the red zone, 86 for Purdue. So, what do you think seems to be the problem in the red zone for y'all? Is it play calling? Is it, what seems to break down in the red zone that you think, and then defensively, what kind of seems to be the issue?
On offense, I think it's a little bit of play calling and lack of interior offensive linemen, or good interior offensive linemen, I should say. I know early on in the Ohio State game, I think it was in the first half at least, they got down to about the half-yard line and couldn't get it in, and it was driving fans nuts because, of course, fans in the goal line want to see you go I formation, but that's not how Graham Harrell likes to do it. He still likes to run out of the shotgun even in those situations. But that's been a struggle all year long, and it just seems like, I don't know, I wish they would move Hudson Card out of the pocket a little more in the red zone. Maybe we see that this week. It sounds like, according to Ryan Walters, the bye week really helped him get back to full health. He was dinged up in the first quarter of the Illinois game and then played against Iowa and Ohio State at not 100%. But really, I think it's the play calling and interior offensive line there for red zone woes. As far as defense, I can't really pinpoint one thing, but they have a lot of break and bend and break there in the red zone. Whereas compared to some past years, they would bend a lot, but then they get pretty strong in the red zone and force a lot of field goals. But so I can't really pinpoint one thing there.
Something's got to give in this game, though. Something's got to give.
Something's got to give. I honestly, looking at it on paper, it might be the first to 24 points wins.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, man.
I know Nebraska's paying a lot of attention to the two backs. Mockbee tore up Nebraska last year, and from all accounts that Graham Harrell's, obviously it's the air raid offense, but he's got some tweaks to it there that really Purdue's been running the ball pretty well out of that air raid offense. So,
yeah, they have been. And Mockbee, like I said, the last 2 games, he's had pretty strong performances when Tyron Tracy went out with I believe it was a groin injury. Because he's been a surprise for the Purdue offense, Tyron Tracy, because Jeff Brom used him more as a wide receiver instead of a running back last year, and he just didn't get in the mix a lot. And then he asked the staff in the spring if he could move to running back, so that was kind of his own idea. They let him roll with it, and they've been a nice 1-2 punch, along with Dylan Downing, who's been a decent third string back for them as well. So that has been a kind of a bright spot the last few weeks, is establishing the run game, getting that going out of the quote unquote air raid offense, which is a total different type of air raid than I think a lot of Purdue fans envisioned when they got Graham Harrell. But hey, each OC runs their air raids a little different. So, but yeah, hopefully Mockbee and Tracy can stay healthy in these last 5 games, because Purdue's gonna really need them to got to run the ball to win games. So.
Yep. And so you mentioned Tyron Tracy, but the big thing that I noticed was efficiency. It's almost 6 yards per carry with him. I believe with Huckabee it's almost 5. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, Mockabee. So what do you think has been the biggest catalyst to that? And then also, with Deion Burks, I believe Deion Burks, just looking at the numbers, I'm just going by that. Has he been the top? He's been the top receiver from what I saw at 15.5 yards per reception. So, what should we game plan for with both of those? With that the way they're running the run game out of the air raid, and then kind of how does that open up Deion Burks?
Yeah, I want to comment on the fan comments here, or the viewer comments with Tanner Lee. Oh yeah, I remember when he transferred to Nebraska from Tulane, and then he ripped Purdue's heart out in a 1-point victory for Nebraska at Ross-Ade Stadium. I was at that game, and it was just weird hearing my name on the PA and announcements throughout the game. But very familiar with him. But going back to your question. One thing Mockbee struggled with early on in the season and kind of got him benched was ball security. He was putting the ball on the ground a lot the first few weeks. He seemed to have cleaned that up the last 3 or 4 games, which is good. But like you said, he and Tracy between the two are getting about 5 yards to 6 yards of a carry. And they're different running styles too. Tracy runs with a little more power, even though he can be speedy as well. And Maccabee's kind of, I think his nickname's Crazy Legs, because you never really know what direction he's going to go until he's already going in that direction. So 2 little different run styles there. And what was your other question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just how does that, with Deion Burks, his
yes,
because it seems like he's 15.5 per reception is it's no small number. So how does that kind of open up, and what should the Nebraska defense kind of prepare for to kind of contain Deion Burks?
Well, it definitely wouldn't shock me if they even find different ways to give him the ball this week after having a bye week. Because I know that was a complaint a lot of Purdue fans had, is there's been some games he's hardly been targeted, or some games he's kind of disappeared and only had 2 or 3 receptions, and you just can't have that as him being your number 1 wide receiver. I love for them to utilize him a little more and use him on some end arounds, or even throw him in the backfield once in a while, kind of like Purdue used to with Rondell Moore, and the Arizona Cardinals still do with Rondell Moore. Not comparing the guys at all, even though they both wore number 4 for Purdue. But yeah, that's the thing. If Nebraska can find a way to shut Burks down or make it tough for him to get open, on slants, make guys like TJ Sheffield and Abdur Rahman Yassin beat you, and Garrett Miller, a tight end that Purdue, and I know NFL scouts are real high on, and he's finally, I think, starting to get that knee healthy. Missed the first 2 games this year after being out all last year with the torn ACL. I think he's finally starting around into form, and they need him now more than ever because freshman Max Clare is out for the season. He hurt his leg against Illinois, and he was kind of a young bright spot that not too many Purdue fans expected to be a target this year. But so if Nebraska find a way to make it difficult on Burks, that's going to make it pretty easy on their defense, I think.
Tanner Lee is here, Boiler Breakdown Podcast. You can catch the Boiler Breakdown Podcast. You see the Twitter handle right there, and also Tanner Lee. Best way to find that, you can just look it up on any of the audio platforms, or I'm assuming, Tanner, that you post them on your Twitter feed, so we've got posted right there on the banner.
Yep, on Twitter and also YouTube. You can find us on the YouTube channel as well, and Facebook. So we're out there almost on all social media channels and all audio platforms. So not too hard to find.
I expected Hudson Card to have a more positive impact on this team. I watched him play quite a bit at Texas. He won a tough quarterback battle early in his career. He was last seen really in a prominent game playing against Alabama, in which he had to come in for Quinn Ewers and was hobbling on one ankle, and still turned out a gutsy performance and almost pulled that game out. Actually left the game with a lead. And again, I'm not selling him as a first round NFL draft selection, but just a really good college quarterback. And he's had his struggles in this offense. Would you point to him more so, or offensive line, or other issues?
I think it's a little bit of both. I'll lean more on the offensive line. Offensive line I had my concerns, like I said earlier during the podcast, going into the season already, and then a few starters have went down with injuries. Marcus Bowe went down for the season against Iowa. Then they've had Gus Hartwig, their center, didn't return until I think it was week 3 this year against Syracuse. Of course, they lost 3 starting linemen due to the transfer portal. Jeff Brom took Eric Miller with them down to Louisville. Spencer Holstage went out to UCLA, and then they lost another guy, name's escaping me. He went to Arizona State. So losing 3 out of your 5 stars to the transfer portal definitely is never helpful. But with that said, there has been games where I think Hudson's held onto the ball too long. I think Iowa was a perfect example of that. Regardless, he was banged up that going into that game, but he had plenty of times, a few different times he could have taken off and ran, and he just didn't do it that game and ate a lot of sacks. And so I'd like to see him, as long as he's healthy, get out of the pocket, run a little more. Sometimes, even though he's got a lot of patience in the pocket, and sometimes that can pay off, but other times it's just he needs to get the ball out of his hands quicker. He's just holding on too long, looking for that big play downfield. So he's had some good spots, some bright spots this year, some bad spots. But I agree with you, Mark. I think Purdue fans all expected a little more, especially out of all the praise the coaching staff gave him coming out of spring ball.
I am searching for the point spread on this one. Do we know?
I think I saw 2.5. Nebraska favored by 2.5 today on at least one line.
Yeah, that's what's in your game notes sheet.
Okay. 2.5, 43.5 over under. So basically a toss up, considering that Purdue's on the road for this. Do you guys have any thoughts about Nebraska as a fan base? There's really, we've been in this division format for 9 years, and so they've played in the same division, but there's little else really connecting these two schools. Of course, Nebraska comes in from a completely different conference, the Big 12, and there's a tie to Iowa there that is historic, but also the Big 10 has forced as a rival in the final weekend of the season. And then the other connections are because Wisconsin's been one of the better teams in the division. But is there any thought given to Nebraska by Purdue, or do you believe vice versa?
As far as towards the Nebraska fan base from a Purdue standpoint,
Yeah.
I don't think Purdue fans, at least I personally, I don't have any problem with Nebraska. I think it's really cool how loyal Nebraska fans are to their football team, how they travel so well. It's been neat to see how many Nebraska fans have come to Ross-Ade Stadium the few times they've played at Purdue, even in years where Nebraska has been down, so to speak. They still travel well, and they're a lot more polite, in my experience, than another team that travels big time in red. Maybe that just visited Ross-Ade. But credit to those fan bases too. They've had a lot of struggles in Ross-Ade Stadium, so I understand why they might be a little fed up. But no, I think it took a while for me to get used to Nebraska being in the Big Ten as a fan that's been born and raised through the Big Ten my whole life. But used to it now, and it'll be interesting to see these next 4 teams join next year. But I think no, Nebraska's been good for the conference, and not just in football and many sports, especially volleyball.
Is that other red team you're talking about probably not fond of Rondale Moore?
You would be correct.
All right, just making sure.
That was a great game.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was definitely one that I think will live in Purdue fans' memories forever. That place was rocking that
I'm
night.
guessing the vote on it being a great game would be 3-1 here.
Yeah, that's about
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot. Sensitive subject. No, I remember I was in Nebraska. I actually flew out there for a game that weekend, and it was that night we watched that game at the bar. So yeah, it was like just a little cushion on top to. I think we had won that game. I think we had won that week. So
I don't remember.
I can't keep track of when.
If Purdue was doing its
few between, so it's hard to remember.
If Purdue was doing its allegiance, its proper allegiance to the Big Ten, they would have lost that game because they cost the Big Ten a playoff spot.
That is true. That is true.
I did post this year before that Purdue-Ohio State matchup that can anybody guess where Ohio State has its worst road record in the Big Ten this century? It's not at Wisconsin or Michigan or name off all the obvious choices. It's not even close. Yeah, 5 losses at Purdue.
Yeah, it wasn't close this year, though. They made sure of it. So
I feel like the opposite for Nebraska with Ohio State, especially at home. I feel like every time it's just a complete, just an utter blowout. I went out to that College game day game where Justin Fields ran all over us. So that one sticks out in my mind. But it just seems like Ohio State is that team that just like we cannot quite. One year we played them really close, But outside of that, I think it's just that they're a very scary team for Nebraska. So opposite views there on Ohio State for sure.
So they're like to you what Wisconsin is to Purdue. So
Yeah, exactly. But also what Wisconsin is to Nebraska.
yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, Tanner, unless Greg or Justin has anything else, you did mention the 4 new additions to the Big Ten next season. And of course, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that during the offseason because the matchups, I think, are just very intriguing just to see how these schools will adjust and how the Big Ten will adjust to those offenses. They're just very different styles of play. But looking at, and not to kick dirt on Purdue because Justin had to bring up 2018, so this is not me retaliating.
It's all right.
to underline that Ohio State's a have and Purdue would be a have not. But you look at a situation where you add 4 schools of that caliber, and there's already 2 mega giants, and you might include Penn State, and then there's Wisconsin and Iowa, where Purdue could just get buried in this conference. Is there a thought that, okay, well, we're going to be buried in this conference, or, this is a challenge. This is a challenge for the administration to step up. And we're going to be making all this money. Everybody's going to be making all sorts of money. So there's no excuse in regards to the conference already makes the most money in media revenue as it is. And then it's going to just only skyrocket starting next season. So even Indiana, they could spend more on coaches than Georgia if they want to. Just your thoughts about, where the fan base sits there and yourself in regards to Purdue's opportunity in competing in a new Big Ten.
Yeah, personally myself, I might feel a little different than some Purdue fans, but I mean, I grew up, I've seen Purdue make 1 Rose Bowl, but that was kind of lightning in the bottle. That was Drew Brees, Joe Tiller. Yeah, he wasn't too bad. In that 2000 season, Purdue just had a lot of things break their way to that year. But I mean, I've seen good quarterbacks, Kyle Orton and some others. But for the most part, if Purdue wins 7-8 games, that's a pretty good year for them. And when you're adding these 4 schools in the mix, I definitely think that's going to be multiplied even more. So if Purdue can find a way to win 7 or 8 games, it's going to be a really good year. So my expectations, I guess, I'm pretty level headed. I mean, we had our fun last year winning the Big Ten West, even though it was, winning your division 8-4. Say what you will, but so it was nice to get a Big Ten West crown while we could. But I look at it as a fun challenge, like you said. The Big Ten revenues going to be higher than ever. Purdue's put a lot of money in their facilities. They're not scared to throw money at coaches now, like they used to be with previous athletic administration. So I look at it as a fun challenge. I mean, it'll be fun to see USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon come into West Lafayette, and vice versa. It'll be fun destinations for Purdue fans to take a road trip and go see a road game. So, but yeah, it's going to be tough sledding, but I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of Purdue fans, though, would probably say, well, we're definitely a basketball school, always going to be a basketball school, and this just confirms that.
We're volleyball
so Tanner, I'm sorry, Justin, I'm gonna extend this one other question here because I'm fascinated by this because I do call-in shows all week, and the same teams are brought up all the time, and I get sick of talking about the same 5 or 6 programs constantly in the college football playoff. And I love when Kansas State fans call, and Purdue fans call, and Oregon State fans call, because I just think there's the true fabric of college football where they just love their team. And they know they're not thinking about a college football playoff and all of that. And I grew up an Ohio State fan, and literally Ryan Day says it almost every other week. I know I have to win every game. Like there's the expectation. Urban Meyer said it a few weeks ago on Fox. I was handed a piece of paper when I got the job that said, graduate your players and win every game. And these guys can relate to that because even though they have not lived that the last 10 years, that's the history of Nebraska football. Sure. That's the standard, and that's where they expect to get back to. What's it like being a college football fan where you love the sport, you love your team, but you go into a season thinking, I'd love to go 7-5, 8-4.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's definitely a different mentality, but it honestly makes me enjoy college football overall that much more. Um, I think it's just because it relatively as of late, especially Purdue's been so good at basketball. Where basketball, it's you're shooting for a Big Ten championship, national championship, and the anxiety as a fan comes into that too, because especially with Purdue struggles in March, yeah, we won't talk anymore about that. But so football, it's kind of a nice break, I guess, before basketball. And like I said earlier, you win 7 to 8 games at Purdue, you're gonna have a pretty good coaching career. I mean, Joe Tiller is the all-time winningest coach at Purdue, and he got the tunnel named after him. The new entrance tunnel where the team runs out is now called Tiller Tunnel. So if you can win 7 to 8 games a year, you're gonna kind of be a Purdue legend. I mean, Joe Tiller brought Purdue football out from the depths of the Jim Coletto era, and they hadn't made a bowl game in many years. And then Jeff Brom helped them make them competitive again after Darrell Hazel won 9 games in 4 years for
Well,
Purdue.
I think the two distinctions with Tiller, Tanner, would be number one, the contrast between they were so bad in the 90s to what most of the 90s to what
Right.
he delivered is number one.
Right.
That 8
Right.
and 4 looks amazing when you've been going 3 and 9, 4 and 8, and then
Right.
back in the day, an 11 game schedule. And then number two was back then what he was doing was so innovative and interesting. It was just fun to watch. So even though they weren't competing for national titles, they were just
Right.
good. Plus, they were really fun to watch.
Right.
Throw and catch the football.
Right. No, those are very good points. Basketball on grass, he kind of, brought it to the Big Ten, and then everybody kind of adopted it after that. But yeah, no, it's I've been a Purdue fan since I was born. I'm a Purdue alum, and if I could make it through the Darrell Hazel years, the 9 wins, which I know one of those was against Nebraska, so thank you guys for that. But if I can make it through those years, I can make it through any college football year and enjoy it. So I'm excited about the Ryan Walters era. It hasn't maybe started off as good as a lot of Purdue fans had hoped, but I like the youth and the enthusiasm of this staff, and I like what they're doing so far on the recruiting trail.
Hey, and you've beaten Nebraska 2 of the last years in a row. So
yeah, I think 4 of the last 5 as well. So
yeah, you own the series. I think 6-5 over all time.
Yeah. So, but now we'll see with Matt Rule in the helm instead of Scott Frost. We'll see two first-year head coaches for the program. Should be interesting on Saturday.
Mark, can I ask one more thing before we go?
Absolutely.
Because we got a 2-week stretch of something happening on this show. Okay, so I'm going to ask score predictions to see if we can make it 3 weeks in a row.
Ooh. You want me to start?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, I said earlier, I think it's the race to whoever can score 24 points first wins, and I represent Purdue. I have to go with my heart here, so I will go Purdue 24, Nebraska 21.
I was thinking 24-20 in Nebraska. Okay, so the last 2 weeks, the Illinois guy and the Northwestern guy predicted losses. So I'll see if we can get for their team. So I'll see if we can get 2 weeks in a row. But it's all good. I like it.
I'm gonna go 17-9 Nebraska.
17-9.
Greg's right on with this. So I'm always guessing in the 20s, and I'm over. So
Greg likes.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with
the rest of the year. I think every game.
He's betting the under for sure.
Well, and I'm probably, I'm putting a field goal in there for Purdue. I'm kind of delusional there. Purdue's 3 for 9 for field goals on the year.
Oh boy, and I just gave you 3 of them. Wow.
Yeah. So, but they are getting their starting kicker has been out for the last 3 or 4 games. He is coming back this week, but even he hasn't made too many. I mean, they've only made 3 as a team. So, yeah, that's been ugly.
Theme, Tanner, and I'm going to say you do kick 1 field goal, but Nebraska wins 19-17 on a missed Purdue field goal at the gun.
I don't know, my heart can take that.
I don't think we have not fared well in last-second field goals. I don't feel like I would love to see how many of those. Yeah, I feel like they always drill them against us.
Good stuff. Tanner, we appreciate you stopping by. Everybody, check out Boiler Breakdown Podcast, and you see the spots on X/Twitter to find that. But Tanner, thanks so much for jumping on board with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Good luck on Saturday.
Appreciate it, man. Likewise.
All right, guys. Anything else you want to hit on before we say goodbye?
No, I think that was a pretty good info there. So
yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody pray that Nebraska gets through this game healthy.
Yeah, that's Yeah, absolutely. We cannot, like, I don't know what we're going to do at a certain point. If this continues, I might have to suit up. Me and Greg will run out there.
I don't have any eligibility left.
You're the closest to the field, Greg. You're right there. You're only a few steps away. You could probably stuff the run a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play some goal line defense.
I'll just lay down in front of a guy running.
If they make a break for the end zone on the sideline, just stick the foot out.
All right, folks, you can catch Greg's work at Husker Online right here on YouTube or huskeronline.com. And then you got Justin Adams, of course, after each and every Nebraska game here at the Voice of College Football. Get here for post game right after the Huskers and the Boilers go final. And then, of course, it's Cheesy Corn Sports. That's right here on YouTube, folks. Cheesy Corn Sports. What's going on over there these days, Justin?
Yeah, so we just had actually kind of a creative meeting yesterday. So we're going to be adding breaking news to the channel, just in NFL, fantasy football, and stuff like that. If anybody's interested in fantasy football, we go live 2 hours before the games every Sunday, and we just kind of help you answer lineup questions. We take call-ins and have live updated injury reports and all that. So just join us. We'll get you ready for the games on Sundays. So
that's what we're missing here at the Voice of College Football: creative meetings.
Yeah. It helps. Especially when you got like 3 people trying to work on the same thing. So,
all right, good stuff. All right, folks, make it on back next Tuesday and bring a friend or two, and we will see you back then. And in the meantime, enjoy the football this weekend and join Justin after the game.